The White Pill is available now at whitepillbook.com. This episode is brought to you by Patriot Gold. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us a very, very special episode. With me is returning guest and absolute American hero, Cody Wilson. He is the creator of the Ghost Gun, and his work with Defense Distributed over the last decade is now the subject of a new documentary called Death Athletic. And we have the producer and director, Jessica Solce, with us here today as well. It's going to be premiering on the 20th in Austin, and yours truly will be hosting it. And if people play their cards right, it might end up like that Colorado Joker movie where people are fleeing for the exits, because I'm going to be packing.
We can only hope.
Tell people, so I've had Cody on the show several times. I am an enormous proponent of technology as a mechanism of subverting the state and its machinations. And I think technology is a much better protector of our rights than any piece of paper, no matter how rarefied and dignified it might be. Can you tell people how they can watch this documentary and so forth?
Of course, sure. Currently, it is on pre-sale. You can find me on Twitter. It's easy, Jessica Solce, or go straight to deathathletic.com. All the buttons to connect via there is possible. And so pre-sale right now, and then it releases on October 21st. Also on October 21st, it'll be on Google and Amazon and those kind of streaming sites. But always better to go direct to the filmmaker because, then we actually can make some money. So October 21st, it releases. And then there'll be like Blu-rays and all that other stuff coming out soon.
The DVDs and the VHS.
Yeah.
I'll repost this again when it launches to give it more juice. What got you interested in this project, and was it difficult working with someone who is so uncharismatic?
Only at moments. This has been a long story, Michael. So Cody and I have known each other since 2013. He was actually in my first documentary. There was a yin-yang between like pro-gun and anti-gun. The doc was called No Control. And during the making of that doc, I stuck with its original impetus and finished it. But Cody is a very charismatic figure who's very interesting, very well spoken, and really, he's a rebel, and we love rebels on film. And I really, really wanted to see where this story would go, and not, the motivation for the first film and the second film was always, I was really sick of just seeing like 2-minute journalist pieces on a topic, which were always heavily biased. The first one talks about the efficacy of gun control, and every time gun control came up, all you did see was kids running out of buildings, right?
Right.
And so for this film, every time Cody came up in the media, it was usually rather quick and very biased, and it didn't really go into like the ethics or the morals or the reasoning or the principles behind everything he was doing, which I found incredibly interesting. So in 2015, when I was like, Cody, I think I'm going to still be filming you, but I want this to be expansive. And he jumped on for the ride. And that 8 years later, and almost 9 years now, here we are.
So there is enormous pressure, and it's a given that if you are going to be talking about Cody in a media piece, it has to be immediate. So there's a technique that journalists use, and once you explain it to people, you see it all the time. When you have a play, at the beginning of a play, you'll have a cast of characters, right? And I'll say like Jessica, ambitious young film director, Steven, a bright young guy trying to become a doctor, Cody Wilson, evil monster who wants children to be slaughtered, right? So if you watch any like mainstream art article, it'll be like Cody Wilson, comma, whose ghost guns are responsible for school shootings, comma. So like immediately And parenthetically, as soon as he's introduced into the piece, the author is telling the audience what they should think about him, and it's invariably nefarious. So,
Mhm.
did you feel that pressure when you were creating this documentary to portray him as someone who, rebels and having rebels, excuse me, and having blood on his hands?
I mean, he's awful in the film. No, I'm
Yeah,
joking.
but is he awful in the sense of bloodthirsty?
No, 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 no. Not at all. I am detached from any pressures of
Okay.
society to control what I don't want to do. So no, not at all. I wanted to make a film that was a honest profile, and I hope I've done it, of who Cody, who is, what he was channeling and trying to create, and do it honestly and unbiased as possible.
Has he converted you to waving the black flag yet?
I wave it every day now.
Is that true?
I mean, yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
absolutely.
Good work, Cody. Okay, score 1
Mhm.
for the good guys. We can't hear you, buddy.
I
Come
hear
on.
you.
Sorry, I wanted to be respectful in case Tom wants to show back up. But uh, I think Jessica may be my only convert.
Is that right?
I I don't think I've ever really personally led anyone to like these beliefs, and so I'm making a bit of a joke. But I think the neutral point of view that Jessica wanted to maintain, that's unique. No one who's ever really come into my orbit and tried to record anything we've done, no one's ever shown me that they're as committed as she is to just showing what there is and not necessarily shaping it.
But wouldn't you say that your work has done an enormous service in the sense of persuading people who would be for gun rights to realize, wait a minute, this is not an issue that's being engaged in good faith.
Right.
That if we're going to talk past each other, it's going to be till we're blue in the face because they will lie and they don't care. A great example of this is Oklahoma City, which was a bomb. And the next day, President Clinton, while the bodies were still warm, was talking about gun control when no guns were used in Oklahoma City. So they will use any tragedy, Uvalde, when the parents were withheld by the cops from saving their own kids in the school. The answer is always only specifically AR-15s. Somehow like all. So
Yeah.
you and why I'm such a champion of Defense Distributed in your work is it shows A, talking to these people is pointless, and B, it's also irrelevant because you can't censor information in an internet age unless you shut down the internet. And once this data is out there, you can stamp your foot all you want, Sharon Watts, and every town and all that stuff, but we're not talking to you anymore. We're going to be free, and there's nothing you could do about it.
I think that's true, but it may work in reverse. Like it may mean that advocacy in verbal terms is equally as useless, and that our civic consciousness, it evolves. It's shaped by events and a multiplicity of factors. Where sure, people email me every day, or and they say like, "Oh wow, Cody, you're the guy. Like you made me believe in this." But I know that in fact it was it's paradigmatic, right? Eventually it crystallizes for you, and I hope I've had a large part in helping that happen, illustrating it, evoking some of the deeper ideas. And I think Jessica hit on one of the biggest of the ideas, this plastic power called the death athletic.
Um, I just curious, like, what kind of reaction you've had. Do you live in Austin as well, Jessica?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what kind of reaction had you had from like because whenever I used to write a book, like I did my North Korea book or I'd co-author a book with celebrities, like it took over my consciousness and I'd be talking about it all the time to the point my friends are like, I don't really care about like Kim Jong Il anymore. You've been working on this project quite some time. At a certain point, I imagine your friends are like, I don't care about these plastic guns.
Well, Michael, I used to live in New York City,
Oh God, yeah, okay,
even though I am a Texan. So, yeah, as obsessions do, you want to talk about them quite often to willing ears because there's excitement in obsession. And it was always interesting how much resistance and disinterest and just emotional feedback I would encounter and still encounter. Oftentimes I'd be like, not sure if I have a friend tomorrow. But and that was far 2015. We're talking about like pre-COVID, pre all these moments where ideas were like crucifying people, right? It had begun. There
right.
was the taste at that time. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey and just discussing topics. And still to this day, it's amazing when I meet people and Cody is brought up and they're like, "Oh, but he gives guns to people," and I'm like, Gosh darn it, there's no guns. It's all code." Like, so those encounters actually, and to this day, it just emphasized how much I wanted this film to be made, because at minimum, let's get history right.
Right.
And let's see, if you're curious and you want an opinion like everybody has right now, you should at least know what your opinion is based on, which most people don't. So
Do
I
you,
feel like this film provides that from the legal perspective of everything Cody's gone through with suing the DOJ and then being, on the same side as the DOJ, being sued by all the attorney generals, to just all the motivations and the technopolitics of like technology being far in advance to where politics can't even catch up.
I'm curious just on a personal level because how people reconcile this with like gender, because we're told that 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted in college. There's talk about all these celebrities who, powerful men just get away with violently raping women. And having a handgun is the way for females who are obviously going to be much weaker and smaller than males to keep themselves safe and protected. God forbid the worst comes to worst. And at the same time, there's this complete uh, in awful culture, affluent white female liberal culture, that the gun is a totemic object, that it's basically sentient. And if it's in your home or it's even portrayed positively or neutrally in media, this is a disservice because it is imbued with its own evil energy. And if you have it around, you're basically inviting people to come to your home and rape and murder you, or murder and rape you in that order. So how has that, just as a female, like affected your thinking?
Gosh, people were asking me the other day my framework as a female, and that just completely confuses me. I don't even think of those terms in those
Okay.
terms. Uh,
But I'm sure your friend I mean, I'm sure some of your friends do.
sure. I mean, uh, if you want the tool, have it. There's a massive level of protection it can provide you, whether it's like comfort to anxiety or
Yeah.
not. Um, Yeah, as a female, I was brought up around guns, so it's just I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
you're
think of
lucky.
those terms, yeah.
I remember at a Q&A, Jessica was saying they've made her redesign her poster that you can see behind her there, and
How
that seems to
so?
be to your point, Mike.
It's graphic violence, Michael, isn't it attacking you right now?
Wait, so how did they make you redesign it? How was it before?
Well, to sell it to streaming, they were saying that it's too graphic. So I had to
That
make
what's right behind you is too graphic?
yeah, it's graphic violence.
Wait, are
So
you
there's
serious?
yeah, it's a strange time where literally an X-ray of the gun is considered a threat and might not be allowed on a streaming network as a poster. It's wild.
And this is them talking to a female filmmaker, as you pointed out, Mike.
Sure.
But
Um,
it's quite literally not pointed at the viewer.
Yeah, too bad.
So what's the new poster look like? Is it just Cody holding balloons like
Uh,
Pennywise?
he's
good.
floating away
Pretty good.
with a red balloon. I can
Yeah.
pull it up. It's just a ghost gunner in the middle. It's actually very cool. I like it a lot. It's
What
basically
was okay? How was this? I'm very okay. This is the kind of stuff that this is exactly what I was just hitting upon. How the use of iconography to very CIA mocking Project Mockingbird kind of thing to influence people's thoughts passively. Because if you never, it's they will make they make the claim, and it's not wrong, that if you watch media and every time you see a black person, oh, I like that too. Okay,
it's cool.
they make the claim that every time if you watch media, you see a black person committing a crime, it's going to encourage people to be racist, right? But if every time you see guns portrayed in a negative way, it's also going to encourage people to fear guns, hate guns, not want guns around, and not regard them as having any utility when there's infinite cases where they not only prevented crimes from being started, but prevented crimes from getting worse once they have been started. So how did they communicate? And I'm glad that we're having actual concrete examples of guns being stigmatized. How was this communicated to you? Like, who said this, and what specifically did they say?
Well, it's via my aggregator. So I'm
Okay.
self-distributing this film because this film is kind of untouchable. We tried many avenues of trying to get this starting in 2018 to get post-production money because I'm crazy enough that I fund my films, which, I hit a wall in 2018. It was the first time I tried to sell it, in which the response was, your film is on the wrong side of history. Like they actually use those words, and that definitely was a moment where my brain went like, holy shit, this isn't just something that people say on Twitter. Like this is like this is
And
a
they
real
and
thing.
also that they didn't use a euphemism. They didn't say
Yeah,
this film is too kind of controversial for our family-friendly audience, like, which would have made much more sense, right? Yeah.
yeah, not at all. Straight to the kidneys. So what were we talking about? The
The
usage of
poster.
the poster, the usage of the gun. So self distribution, going through an aggregator to get it on streaming. So like Amazon, iTunes, Google, and Vudu didn't even take it. So I don't know. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they decided. Well, they hate the guns, right? So they in the period of time where you use an aggregator and you send it to Amazon, they have to pitch it, and they wouldn't even move from that position over until I changed the poster. So it was a direct email. I mean, it wasn't like discourteous or anything, but they're like, we can't send this. This is going to get blocked. So, and we only get like one chance.
So it's not even them. It's they're actually doing you a service by saying, "Look, heads up, like we're not going to waste our breath because we know they're going to just shoot it down."
Yes, because Amazon has, rules that you could read. It says, and they've pitched, I guess, posters all the time to get
Right.
on these platforms. So they have a temperature of what is allowed and disallowed. But you
So
have like a bleeding baby, and that's fine.
so go ahead, Cody.
Michael, it seemed that you were aware. I've only been told this indirectly, but there are these like poster rules in Hollywood apparently about guns, and like they can't be pointed toward the audience, I guess, unless like a policeman's holding them or something. Like, are either of you aware of this?
Well, yeah, for No Control, Cody, I had that. Do you remember I had a different poster that was amazing, but it was the gun pointing directly at the viewer, and
No.
everybody nixed it. And I was like, but this is beautiful.
Yeah, but
And
I
it's
can get behind that because like one of the rules of gun safety is don't point a gun at something unless you intend to destroy it, right? So like, don't have your finger on the trigger, assume every gun is loaded and double check, like CC Alec Baldwin. So I can wrap my head around if a poster is going to be visible by kids that you don't want it to be pointed at the viewer. Like I
but
can understand that.
but there are big Hollywood films in the past where the gun is directly pointed at the viewer.
Sure, sure,
So
but I'm saying that's to me is not an unreasonable
gotcha.
kind of a restriction.
One of these deeply closeted NRA guys in Hollywood told me one time that it comes down to even like law enforcement, like only enforcers of the liberal order are allowed to
Mm,
hold or carry guns on posters. And again, I don't know if this is like Motion Picture Association rules or what.
gotcha.
And I remember as a kid, when you have like GI Joe, which is like basically U.S. military, they weren't allowed to have guns; they could only shoot lasers.
Oh,
And their Cobra
Yeah.
and him, they're laser at each other, so you couldn't even have in a cartoon. But again, if it's kids, I can understand how things get a little tricky, and you might want to err on the side of caution, possibly. Um,
Would
just
you guys allow me to stop for a second? There's this fly, and he keeps jumping on the camera and everything.
yeah, you're like a modern day Mike Pence.
It's really crazy.
yell
Yeah,
at
it's like a Mike Pence thing.
yell at it.
Tom, can you like help me kill this fly?
Oh God.
Get your where's your ghost fly swatter?
Tom returns. I think you're gonna just see me like Yosemite Sam start shooting all over
Brett, make sure
the
you put
office
that in the
with a fly.
thumbnail that
I
it's Cody
cannot
with
do
the fly.
this fly. This is weird. Do you see this thing? And he knows somehow to like land right here on the. He's done it
I
like
don't even
twice.
see it.
He's a media whore. He's clout chasing.
Here he is. You see him? Fucking kill that thing, man. I don't know. We're gonna work on it, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
It's tough. It's tough though, man. I can barely think. It keeps landing on me.
Folks, here's where we are. Barron's is warning the stock market looks like the dot-com boom before the bust. The Magnificent Seven, which are all tech stocks, they account for more than 25% of 2023's gains. Fortune is warning the S&P is heading below 3,000. Two of the biggest stock market crashes happened in October, which was 1929, and Black Monday, 1987. Seasonally, we are entering the best 6-month period for gold and silver. And along with the Fed nearing the end of their rate hikes, gold is poised to skyrocket. JP Morgan and Wells Fargo are both forecasting gold to hit all-time highs in 12 to 18 months. So here's what I want you to do. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention my name, Michael Malice, and you'll always get best-in-class service from Patriots protecting Patriots. Patriot Gold Group has the no-fee-for-life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no-fee-for-life IRA and qualifying rollovers. All you have to do is call 888-505-9845 to get a free investor guide, or even better, just go to malicegold.com. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. So call 888-505-9845 or go to malicegold.com and start protecting your money from the state. Folks, did you know their temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? And if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. They're inspired by NASA, and Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so you can sleep at night at the perfect temperature all night long. They're infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, lets them stay cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than other sheets, and they're very comfortable without the high price tag of some other luxury brands. They feel as nice, if not nicer, than bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria, which can clog your pores and causes breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Here's what you got to do. Go to trymiracle.com/malice to try Miracle Made sheets today, and whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one or someone you don't love, they're still a great present. If you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use promo Malice at checkout, you get 3 free towels, save an extra 20%. Here's the kicker. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you aren't 100% satisfied, you get a free refund. Not too shabby, right? Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/malice. Use code Malice to get your free 3-piece towel set. Save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/malice to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the show. What I'm curious, Jessica, like, as you were, how long this has been, how many years did you work on this film?
Since 2015.
Right. So there's like lots of like legal situations that happen along the way. What was kind of the moment? Was there like one moment, the biggest moment where you're like, holy crap, this whole project might go off the rails? There must have been several.
There was several. There was a few. Definitely in, I mean, yeah, there was a few. When 2017, when which is in the film, and Cody is trying to get the Supreme Court to take the case, and there was like a year-long wait, and we
Yeah.
were just all waiting. And there was a moment where I was like, Jessica, you are nuts. You're moving into your 4th year. This is a process and story that is going to take forever. Because that comes back and forth, especially when I was doing a doc like this.
Yes.
And then, of course, in 2018, there was a lot of excitement, a lot of things getting done, a lot of movement. Cody gets his license, criminal trouble, that goes off the rails again. I think there was a number of times where it was just like, you got to just stick to it and keep going and keep convincing Cody to let me in and trust me. And but by 2020, I knew that the end was in sight.
Okay.
It was time.
I mean, how do you even just, and like when I did my last book, The White Pill, which was about the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, I'm covering like, it was like 90 years of history, right? Like there's so much content, like condensing it was just excruciating. So if you have like almost a decade's worth of material, I mean, sure, there's lots of pauses where it's just like we're sitting around, twiddling our thumbs, but there is so much there to sift through. And how do you just as a creator decide what was germane and what isn't? It's like 2 hours still, right? Which is still
It's
long for a doc.
102 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
It took
Hashtag autism speaks.
specifically. It took a long time. Like my first cut was 7 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
There is tons and tons of footage on the floor. Sometimes I rewatched in Prague with Cody, and I was like, oh my God, I did take that out, or we did take that out. It was necessary, but I loved that shot. Like, so there's still so much like, but there was also times where a lot was cut and I had to put it back in because, you have to build that story and arc. So yeah, it's a lot of footage and a lot of information, even more information that I think would be cool to be in this film, but I'm not making a third one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cody, when you were in Prague, you were in Prague with him, Jessica?
Yeah.
Did you guys have a chance to go to the Museum of Communism?
No.
Oh, wow. That's in Prague?
Yeah, and it's absolutely amazing because unlike Western museums, so for people who watching who didn't read The White Pill and who don't know, like in 1968, Dubček, who was the head of Prague, whose signed photo hangs over my desk with some other heroes, he wanted to implement socialism with the human face and
Mhm,
implement more free speech, less authoritarianism. He's like, let's have socialism work the way it's supposed to work, which is helping poor people, making sure
Mhm.
people have housing, education, and so on
mm,
and so forth. Let's even introduce some element of democracy and more kind of political back and forth. And he was invaded by the rest of the Eastern Bloc, and they sent him to fuck off to the middle of Slovakia. So the Czechs and the Slovaks have not had an easy time. The Nazis also kind of with the Anschluss took over, or whatever. I don't remember if it was the Anschluss, but they took over a section. And for those who don't know, it's actually kind of funny. In 1946, they took everyone in Czechoslovakia who was German or of German descent, even people who had been there for like hundreds of years and didn't speak German, and put a sign on their back and made them walk back to Germany. It was
Oh
this
my
kind of
God.
insane trail of tears. So the Czechs do not like this totalitarian stuff at all. So the museum there, which if anyone's going to Prague, please go. Instead of the signs being very like austere and scholarly, it goes, we were told that everyone have food, but under these real demented system, like it's just like fuck these people forever. So it's just really beautiful, but it also shows the just depravity. And I have a bunch of magnets on my fridge where it's like it was a time of shiny, happy people, especially the ones who worked in the uranium mines. So there's this kind of dark humor element to it as well. So I highly
there's
recommend that.
there's a lingering echo of post-communism, I guess, in the venue that we showed the film.
Mhm.
Jessica, if you'll allow me,
Yeah.
we screened the film at what's called Parallel Polis. That's what it's called in English. And I guess you must know about this, Michael. This space is inspired by Václav Havel, right? His idea of parallel structures and parallel society, which is a 1978 kind of post-communist resistance idea. He at least innovated the concept, and so you know, our location, like the crypto anarchists at this Institute of Crypto Anarchy, are highly aware of the legacy of post-communist structures and the need to create free spaces, at least on the internet, if not structured underground and parallel spaces.
So what's it like going to one of these countries for you, Cody? Because you're an American. You're like I was born in the Soviet Union, but I mean, obviously, I came here when I was very young. But I still, it's I was raised by people, who were from the Soviet Union. It affects you differently. As someone who is like tried and true American, what's it like for you to go to these countries and be like, I'm sure it's like there, but for the grace of God, go I.
I mean, I like considering the use of history and living historically and how that's affected different points of view. I like the jokes that I get. Everybody in Prague was telling me, the Czechs aren't real Slavs, and everybody's little fights. Uh, but I don't know. To me, it just provides like some additional context to the highly Americanized point of view that I have, and it's somehow and sometimes inappropriately Americanized. So I like coming back to European civic consciousness and meeting my friend Amir, who I hadn't seen in 8 years. But I think what I want to say to answer your question is, I'm reminded that like I'm not actually interfered with very much when I go to these countries. I'm only interfered with when I return back to my so-called homeland, this so-called non-communist country.
How so? Like, what happens when you come back here? Like, is there any? Is there, I mean, what's the current legal drama? There's always
I'm just
something.
saying that, like when I got back here, I didn't miss any flights when I was overseas or get any trouble. The guy in Amsterdam and the Czech Republic, they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm giving a speech." They're like, "All right, have a good day." And when I get back to the United States, my passport goes in a little passport jail, and they take me under the airport,
Is that
and
right? Every
I
time?
have to do and I have to do 3 police interviews to get back into the country. And the proud little Praetorian, the little policeman, he says, "Remember, you're not in the United States until I let you into the United States.
Wait, he
You're
says that to
nowhere."
you?
You're nowhere, buddy. And,
Damn.
Wait,
yeah,
he
they all think
literally
I'm
says
being
that to you?
smart. They all think I'm being smart. I swear to God, that's what he told me. And, it's like No Country for Old Men. He's like, "Who's gonna let you into this country?" He's like, "That's you, sir." He's like, "Yeah, that's right, that's me." It's the same thing. And, and so everybody gets their little swing on me. They had a lady cop last time at Dallas, so she was my last hurdle, and she was like, She was asking me questions like she didn't believe about this parallel society thing that we went to go present the movie. She's like, well, "Where can I find evidence of this?" And I was like, "It's on Twitter,
Yep.
ma'am." And and I'll say whatever she wants, clean, straight, right? I don't want to mess up. And then she says, "We can make this hard if you want to." I'm like, "Lady, what do you want me to say?"
Wow.
And it's just, hey, man, that's my right. And that same day, literally, I get off the airport and I had learned that we just got an injunction in the Fifth Circuit. This was like only 2 or 3 days old. I'm just saying, just a few days ago. All right, great. I made an important contribution to the law of guns in this country. But first, I have to go get my white glove treatment under the Dallas airport. That's the country I live in.
Well, I'm sorry, like, I don't understand how you're sitting there laughing at this.
What is there to do but laugh at it,
Well,
Michael?
I mean, being enraged that, like, to me, maybe this is just because 'cause I'm so effing uppity, but when these TSA people with a neck tattoo feel comfortable, like, raising their voice to me or, like, stepping up, like,
Yeah.
my shackles go, like, it's to, like, I don't even know how to finish that sentence. So that I'd be
Some.
sitting there and this I don't even know what word I would use, would tell me, like, I don't believe you, go fuck yourself. Like, this because you're
Uh,
too stupid to use a computer to look something up?
yeah, I think.
Do you not have a lawyer? I'm sorry,
Do
I don't
I not have a
understand.
lawyer?
You have a lawyer,
Yeah.
so I don't
No,
understand why,
yeah, I
like,
got a lawyer, homeboy.
can't you just tell them, "Talk to my lawyer, bitch"?
I don't know,
You
man.
know what? I've been
They got all
watching too much
I don't know if
case
that
no,
would
here it
work
is.
in
You know
that
what it is?
moment.
You know what it is? Here's what it is.
uh,
I'm gonna give a shout out. There's a guy on YouTube called James Freeman. Everyone should watch him. And what he does is he films cops, and
mhm,
they don't know the law, and he does. And what'll happen is he'll be, like, in a crime area or crime scene, and they'll put the tape behind him and say, "You have to leave," and he goes, "I don't fucking have to do shit. You're an idiot." Like, he just the most abusive language, but he's right, because once you're in that
mhm.
scene, you can't rope off the scene, and they don't know what to do, and they start threatening him, and he gets them fired. I mean, this guy is
Yeah.
just an absolute beast. So, I know that there's a big part of you, Cody, that your blood type is sovereign citizen, and yeah, that you wanna be like, "Am I being detained? Am I free to I'm not flying, I'm traveling." But, like, is it just at this point that explain that to me, because, like, I get it psychologically.
Well, no doubt, and like in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, if you're too friendly to the cops, right, it arouses contempt in
Right.
the cop heart. So I understand this. I think some of it's because you're actually in this distinct international federal zone, and there's all these posters posted, like Homeland Security and CBP, like they have the upper hand, and you can't use your devices, and you can't play Jimmy Justice and like Mr. Freeman and stuff. You can't do these like traditional. Um, what's that place in New Hampshire called?
Free
Like the
state.
free state. Yeah, you can't use these free state tactics. You're in something new. You're in this techno political zone, to use Jessica's term, which largely Americans are not aware has been built and has accelerated in its construction since at least obviously 9/11, but of course COVID. Like when I returned this time, this is the first time I saw facial scans to come back into the United States. I hadn't seen that before. And I asked other people, and they said like, well, yeah, that's been happening for a while. That hadn't happened to me. I hadn't seen that, and of course I opted out. But something new is being built, and like this is a post-American, post-Republican environment. And sure, it would be emotionally satisfying to rage and complain and to bitch and to moan, and I do my duty to opt out in certain ways. But like, at a certain point, you really are risking something if you are to simply tell the cop interviewing you to let you back in the United States to go fuck themselves.
Let's face it, after a night with drinks, you don't bounce back the next day like you used to. You have to make a choice. You could have a great night or a great next day, and that's where ZBiotics comes in. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to handle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. You drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it most. Just remember to drink it before drinking alcohol and drink responsibly to get a good night's sleep. Go to zbiotics.com/malice to get 15% off your first order when you use Malice at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code so you can stay prepared no matter what time or occasion. ZBiotics is backed by a 100% money back guarantee. If you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So just go to zbiotics.com/malice and use code Malice at checkout, and you get 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode. Folks, Michael Malice here, terrible author, horrible person on Twitter, and yes, sheath underwear model. Do you want to get inside my pants? Well, you can with Sheath underwear. What's great about Sheath is their dual pouch technology. They've got one pouch for one part of your male anatomy, another pouch for another part of your male anatomy. The first time I put them on, I'm like, what is this crap? But then I realized these are the most comfortable underwear I've ever worn. I wear them every single day. It was developed by Bobby, who was an Iraq vet. So you know things get uncomfortable down there when you're in the desert. And I've designed my own pair. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice, you get 20% off, and you could start one step closer to becoming an underwear model just like myself, but not as much of a terrible person like myself. Go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice, get 20% off today. What's great about this underwear is that it keeps you cool in the hot weather, and it keeps you snug and secure in any situation. And there's something a little subversive about being like, let's say, on a date or a job interview and knowing that your underwear is cupping your you-know-what downstairs. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice for 20% off. Let's get back to the show. But literally, you are an American citizen that's not legally in dispute, right? Are they in a position to deny an American citizen the right to return to his home?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know, but they show you that they have the right, or they tell you they have the right to do anything they want to you, and of
They-
course, you know they're allowed to lie to you, and they insist and impress upon you over and over that they have the right to. I mean, my shit got tossed, homeboy. They went through everything, and they over and over insisted they had the right to search my devices, which you hear about happening sometimes to Americans upon their return. So it's the height of American airport security theater. I'm not saying it was even that eventful. I'm just saying this is what I have to look forward to upon my homecoming.
Did they
To my
actually search
beloved.
your devices?
No, but they they heavily
Like,
suggest that, like,
Oscar.
well, we can do this anytime we want. Like, we can take anything we want off you.
Gotcha.
This kind of thing. And you have to walk the line. Like, if I was to say, oh yeah, let's see, then I'm just delayed. And of course, I missed my connecting flight to Austin, right? Because this takes like 3 hours. Um, this used to only happen to me in the airports like Heathrow, but it usually happens now when I come back to the United States.
Hmm.
Wow. No, I'm not at all saying that you should have a chip on your shoulder and be like, try me because you don't have leverage. I'm just saying, like you just said, you don't know if they have the right to keep you from coming here. I would be very curious, and I'm sure a lot of this is ambiguous and hasn't been litigated yet, and they'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission. But I would be very and I'm sure they have the right to detain you or any of us, right, if they feel like it. But I would be very, very skeptical of the idea that if you are an American citizen, which is not in dispute, with an American passport, and you didn't travel to, Sudan or some weird forbidden country, North Korea, and you're returning from, the Czech Republic, that I don't know that they have the right to say you can't come to America if you're not on some list.
Sure. That sounds right, Michael. But to tie it back to the film, and I'm sorry to we have had to divert this. It's like few people really get the state announcing itself in their lives like this, and fewer
Sure.
still are willing to test the made up, invented on the spot claims of petty law enforcement officials, because of course that would mean testing that petty argument over 6 or 7 years in some federal court, and it's
Right.
like ain't nobody got time for that. And it's like to your point, Michael, you're like, well, wouldn't you want to stand up? And like, hell yeah, I want to stand up. But it's like, I'm already standing up to a number of other insults from a number of other domains. And it's like, you got to economize.
I'm not arguing with that at all. I'm just saying a lot of people are watching this, and I would just encourage you or anyone else. Like, I think it would just take one call to a lawyer
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
know, okay, what are my actual rights and what are they lying about? Because the other thing that
Yeah.
James and other these people who film cops show all the time, and as you know perfectly well, Cody, the cops have no problem either lying or
Mm,
genuinely not knowing what their capacities are legally. They will tell you, well, I can arrest you because you look suspicious. They
mm,
cannot. You have to be, they have to suspect you of committing a specific crime. And a lot of these cops do not know that. They are like, well,
yeah.
I'm investigating because you shouldn't. Why are you filming this police station in the street? I have a right to do that. Well, no one else is doing it, so this is weird, so I'm taking you in. Those cops get in trouble.
Yeah. And people need to your point, Michael, I hope I wasn't coming across as combative. I
No,
don't
not at
normally.
all.
Um, People need to do this. There needs to be this regular practice of, like, especially at border checks and things,
Yes.
interrupting the little narratives of these petty tyrants. No doubt. That's like thoroughly red blooded Americanism. Great idea. So I hope this is instructive to someone listening.
Well, I just hope, just in all seriousness, just call your lawyer. It's going to be a 10-minute call, and be like, next time this happens, I'm sure there's a little card he could give you and be like, just say
Yeah, yeah.
this.
Believe me, I've done this for a number of years now. It's normally more tense when I'm going to a country which has like an ambiguous
Sure,
relationships.
of course.
So normally I have lawyers both here and there. My friends, Amir and Harry, to name check them, are regarded as terrorists in a number of countries in Europe, and so
Oh,
we're always only a phone call away from some attorneys and walking with some papers. I had a lot of papers when I was in Russia in 2017. Like that's how we are. But I guess what I'm saying is, I feel like that traveler in that dangerous place more so when I return to the United States
yes.
than when I travel anywhere else right now.
Well, because in all seriousness, you're an enemy of the state here. You're not an enemy of the state there. You are single-handedly, and this is why I use the word hero many times, fucking their shit up, to be blunt, because they want to impose their views in complete disregard for the Constitution and centuries of law and precedent. And you're like, cool. So now you can't. Now what? So I'm not arguing with you. This is what's going to happen. And then they're like, but told you so. It's like, cool, heard, still can't do anything about it. So this
Okay.
is why I'm such a fan of this program. And I think I've done. I was talking to my buddy, a very failed comedian, Dave Smith. He was here in Austin a while ago, and yeah, I have a big ego, but I didn't realize to what extent I have been the one radicalizing many people on the right to make
Mhm.
them realize, and on the left, that this is not, that the discussions are never in good faith, that even if they are in good faith, who cares? I should not have to explain or defend my rights to anybody else, especially if I'm being peaceful, and I am being peaceful. So you have to look at it that way, that they will have no problem lying or targeting your family, and you have to make workarounds about that instead of trying to think of good arguments when they have no logical consistency to begin with. They're the opponents.
Well said. I hope then. I mean, I'm so proud of what Jessica has made, like this document,
Come back.
because because it's nothing but, like, in our experience and our little career doing this, it's nothing but little moments like this, right, of self doubt and self torture and confrontation with the state, and even the most petty ways. And there's a type of relief I feel that Jessica was at least there for some of these larger moments of like this complete inward turmoil, and she captured it.
Jessica, have you had any concerns about, like, are you going to hear from Homeland Security or the DOJ or any of these other maybe private entities who are doing the government's work?
Um, Not really. I mean, it's passed through my mind, but I haven't given it my energy. I did have a moment when I was passing back because we were with Amir and everyone, but you just have a moment when they look at your passport and they like look at you again and they say, "Why were you traveling?" And you're just like, "Oh, is it that moment?" But it didn't happen. So yeah, you can't help that idea like sit within the mind, but I'm not giving it any energy. It would be ridiculous to come after a filmmaker, but they have done such in the past.
Have you? I would think, why would it be ridiculous? It would be very smart.
Well, it would, I guess, be smart. I'm making some good propaganda, Michael.
Yeah, and so no, it's also like you make a good example of you. Like
Sure.
you're if, all the point I've made, and I'm sure you both agree, is you don't need a majority. You just need alternative. So the fact that though he may be very flawed, Elon Musk has made Twitter an alternative to the corporate media, and I hate the term big tech infrastructure. They don't know what to do because it's just like all you need is just one escape hatch, and then the whole thing collapses. So even
Or
if
the,
you're just that one filmmaker who's like, okay, you got a 100 movies that are lies, one telling the truth, it's going to completely be disproportionate in its impact. So that one person becomes, very, very dangerous. Well, maybe they'll
sure.
come for you after it's released. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure. And we'll see what if the journalism, comes out. If they start writing about the film in the negative, then I made it.
are you sending like review copies to all these like shitty like evil outlets like Vice and all these places?
Vice wrote a piece actually.
What
Actually,
what what they
decent.
say? Oh,
Um,
it was
yeah,
reasonable?
not yeah, reasonable, well formed. They uh, or she set the history of Cody's work and life so far, and then had a back and forth, and it was a reasonable piece. But yeah, we're trying to until the end, we want all the press, right? Even you have to keep my I have to keep my arms open because this really is like a guerrilla style trying to get this film out. So I'll take anything. But if there is if there is a headline that starts repeating itself, then we know we've pissed someone off.
Yeah. Cody, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on a slightly unrelated subject, which is recently the governor of New Mexico basically had a decree saying that you could not have guns in certain public spaces, and she grounded this in calling it a public health emergency. Um, I had tweeted out that COVID had and the lockdowns, whether intentionally or by accident, have given some very, very evil people some very useful information about the limits of American submission and what they'd put up with before they start pushing back. And there was a huge outcry about this, and people are calling her stupid. She doesn't understand the law. And I go, she understands the law a lot better than you because she's putting out a trial balloon. There's no cost to her, and it's all upside because she could be the hero. And this is how you chip away at rights. It's just throw it out there, throw it out there. And at some point, it becomes normalized. It got struck down. But I'm just curious for you, Cody. Like, what were your thoughts when you heard this all going down?
Yeah, we watched that. I think it was the Second Amendment Foundation, which was all over that and got it interrupted pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I found it imperfect in its execution, like not one of the better moves that these people make. Like, yes, she was following the form, like, and the template's been well announced. Okay, we'll use the biopolitical justification. They've been working on the public health thing since well before COVID.
yeah.
She didn't even need COVID as a pretext, although it's a more familiar pretext now. She just called the spate of recent shootings for some reason or other. They met a threshold of a public health emergency, and then even in her own, I don't know, statement from her office, there was a bit of an apology contained there. It didn't need to be there. That seemed to me to be an unforced error. She was almost confessing that she knew it was unconstitutional when she did it. She didn't have to say that. And then her own AG, right, and different sheriffs and chiefs of police were like, I'm not interested in enforcing this. So this was one of the worst implementations, right? And it failed pretty quickly. It didn't have enough like weight behind it. So I found it a little pathetic. But to your point, I mean, it's going to be tried over and over again. There's, like you say, almost no downside, only potential upside. And like in California, where the real drama is that I watch every week and every other week, okay, we wait 6 years, to challenge one of their laws. And of course, they'll pass 7 gun laws every session.
Mhm.
You wait 6 or 7 years on one of them. Okay, you win. And then they immediately improvise some way around it. So they're free. They feel free in their creativity here to just invent pretexts. And okay, maybe if you have the trouble, if you'll take the time, some judge can help you half a decade later.
So, can you talk about what is so I saw Gavin Newsom um, flipping his shit on social media because some crazy radical judge, I mean, someone who takes the Constitution and Heller even slightly seriously, struck down some law. And oh my God, next thing you know, there's going to be homeless people shitting on the street and shooting up in front of school children.
That
Can
must have
you,
been the Mac case. The
yeah,
what was it?
yeah, can you talk about that? Because that was just very recent and this is kind of big news.
It is big news, and yet the judge stayed his own order, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals took what to some seems like
Well,
an
can you
unusual
explain what the
step.
whole situation was for people who aren't aware, is what I
Oh
meant.
God, I mean, it's very long, Mike. To this point about it taking many, many years, like this was a case about California's ban of so-called high-capacity magazines. I think it was like anything over 10 was banned in California, and this has been established for a long time. Like in our companies and stuff, not to send certain magazines to California. Okay, high capacity. It's part of that old late 90s, early 2000s assault weapon conversation. They banned magazines, and many states since then have banned magazines too. Okay, well, even before Bruin, after Heller, but before Bruin, there was a good case that came to a good judge called Benitez, and he found that the Second Amendment protected your right to possess, your keep and bear these magazines, like the state's pretext for public health or whatever it was, like we mentioned earlier, was not sufficient to abridge the Second Amendment. Right, the right to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. Okay, great. So then it goes to a 3-judge panel, and which is unusual in California. The 3-judge panel also found that the Second Amendment protected these magazines. That's unusual. Now California's upset, and the AG appeals not to the Supreme Court, but to the full en banc, like the full Ninth Circuit, who reverse. Okay, again, not a surprise. The Ninth is the most overturned and kookiest court of appeals in the country, completely out of touch. But Trump had softened their impact and laden them with a bunch of new conservative justices. And so every now and then you get decent, in these most recent years, you get decent opinions out of the ninth. It's usually still an accident, don't get me wrong. But by the time the full ninth had made this decision, the case was appealed to the Supreme Court, and we get, in the last 2 years, we get basically all the procedural history of Bruin. And I can explain Bruin. I know I explained it last time. But by the time this is really ripe for decision at the Supreme Court, we have Bruin. And the Supreme Court says, in the light of Bruin, now that we've decided that, we remand to the original district court from so many years ago, Judge Benitez, to re-decide the case. And he already decided that the case was won. The Second Amendment protected it. The Supreme Court just gave him a new justification, or a renewed justification, to strike down California's magazine ban. And so he takes, let's say, 6 months, 8 months. He really dots his I's. He crosses his T's. I read the opinion. It wasn't that great. I don't know why it took him so many months to put it out. Like, it wasn't like, Shakespearean English or anything. But he puts out a good opinion under Bruin, and he says, let's start at the end. California loses. And now here we are again. California is appealing to the full Ninth Circuit, and I don't see any reason to think why the Ninth Circuit would uphold his ruling. Although if they were smart, they probably would.
Folks, your welcome is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Hey, whether you love true crime or comedy or celebrity interviews, news, even motivational speakers, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue, right? Guess what? Now you can call the shots on your auto insurance too. Enter the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. The Name Your Price tool puts you in charge of your auto insurance by working just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, then they'll show you a variety of coverages that fit within your budget, giving you options. Now, that's something you want to press play on. It's easy to start a quote. You'll be able to choose the best option for you fast. It's just one of the many ways you can save with Progressive Insurance. Quote today at progressive.com to try the Name Your Price tool for yourself, and you can join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates, pricing coverage match limited by state law. Let's get back to the show.
What's up, guys? I'm Brendan Schaub. If you love everything mixed martial arts, I'm talking UFC breakdowns, UFC picks, one championship picks, Bellator, PFL, you name it, your boy breaks it all down. Tune into The Schaub Show, available every Monday wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Schaub Show. Enjoy.
Let's get back to the show. Are you surprised by how quickly the judicial landscape has changed to be so much more pro-gun than it was, let's say, 15 years ago?
Damn. Well, I'm actually counting 15 in my head, but you're right. It is much more pro-gun. And yet, I'm involved in active disputes in the Third Circuit. I'm disappointed by recent results in the Eighth. I'm not actually seeing what you would expect to see. A bunch of conservatives online and on YouTube are like, hell yeah, we have Bruin, everything will change. And yet, to your point about like the New Mexico governor, progressives are past that. They see the Supreme Court as a hostile entity, as in many ways illegitimate, and they produce a lot of media basically confirming this illegitimacy to at least kind of feather their conscience or something. So progressives, the state of California, the state of New Jersey, and increasingly New York, they're post-democratic and post-Republican in their approach to at least the Second Amendment. It doesn't matter what the Supreme Court says, and they will defy the spirit of the law if they can't defy it in fact.
You had emailed me about, or texted me about this. What was that you texted me about? Something you guys are dropping in the near future?
Oh, you talking about the AI, GAT GPT?
Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Oh, man. Yeah, that's live, man. We have like a bunch of people testing that thing.
Let's
I want
talk
to talk
about it.
GAT GPT. I should have said that, man. I'm so bad at shilling.
You were doing pretty good with the movie stuff.
You think so? Okay. Well, what do you think, Jessica? Did we shill the movie well?
Yeah.
It's not time for the postmortem.
If I was still filming, Michael, this would go on forever.
I want to hear about the AI.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, I think I kind of made a Second Amendment point here, which is that why do I have to listen to Sam Altman and Modé, or who are these guys from Anthropic? Like, why are these guys in front of Congress and saying, please regulate us? Like, what is this melodrama about? Even Elon Musk, peace be upon him, God be with him. He walks out of this closed door meeting with Chuck Schumer and says, Chuck Schumer is doing a service for all of humanity by proposing strong regulations for AI. What the hell is going on? And like I said, with the Second Amendment analogy, I see AI as a weapon. And if it is a weapon, then it should be in the hands of the people, because that is the American idea, that is the American idiom. And if there is a right to keep and bear arms, there should be a right to keep and bear the newest arms of the digital moment. And those would be at least AI models, compute, GPUs, right? The right to keep and bear, keep and deploy models. So we have deployed an open source model called GAT GPT. And you could say, ah, haha, how cute, a gun expert. But of course, if you can build a gun expert and contradict the powers that be and this expectation that AI won't actually help you understand anything and will largely shepherd you away from controversial contexts or conversations, if you can make it an expert about guns, you can make it an expert about other things that are forbidden. So I think it's a beautiful new project, and hundreds of thousands of people have signed up to help us build such an AI.
What's its? I'm not clear. What's its purpose? Maybe because I'm
It's
too much
not.
of a boomer.
No, you're not. You're not a boomer. It's an
Fine.
LLM, and you could say, well, it's an anti-woke LLM.
What's an
Insofar
LLM?
as I'm sorry, man.
I am a
You
boomer.
get stuck in these little cul-de-sacs. A large language model, right? Like, what's the
Okay.
hottest thing in AI right now? It's these chat agents. Oh, Chat GPT,
Okay.
GPT-4, GPT 3.5. Okay, it's like they train these large fill in the blank statistical engines, and then at the very last minute teach them to be chatbots. So rather than just giving you statistically the next best set of answers to a fill in the blank, you restructure it and you say, all right, now you help a user. A user asks you a question and you answer the question as an intelligent agent. So
Oh,
this is
so
the
this is
phenomena
like
of the chat.
Siri who knows what she's talking about with guns.
Yeah, exactly. It's an intelligent agent who will
Okay.
actually help you and not make you feel. Here, Michael, here's the postmodern point. It doesn't make you feel bad about asking the question. Okay, not just that it will help you, which is itself an innovation. For the last 10 years online, hey, I want to find something out about guns online. Sorry, Google, a search engine, doesn't help you do that. In fact, it is built to prevent you from doing that. So
Is
we've
that true?
invented a
Google
technology.
censors like gun information.
Yeah, of course, Michael. Like Facebook, Instagram, all of it, right? If they don't ban the accounts, you cannot find the accounts. If you
Right.
can find the accounts, you cannot share links and information in the accounts. And even in the most extreme examples, like Jessica has filmed with us, if I was to share the link during August, September of 2018 to defcad.com, the powers that be, the social media engines, censored that in real time. You could not even share the links in private messages. And
Wow.
this was
Okay. I did not
what,
know that.
almost at 8 or 9 years old, so we have a thing called search, and it is built to hide from us what we are looking for.
Right.
It's the same agenda now. We have AI. Oh, it is meant to answer our questions if those questions are not impolitic.
Interesting. GAT GPT is a supernatural progression for me to see Cody do, because in a way he's been building for so long libraries of information, and now this library information has just reached a new techno height of introducing it to the populace with not even having to store it, server it. It's going to be, well, I guess it would still have to be servered, but it's part of the AI search unit now. I don't know how to say that, but
Your
it's another form of library.
your instinct is right. So, Michael, to like dramatize this a little, like what did we do in Jessica's film? Well, we fought for 10 years about the right to have some of these files and this information just on the internet, just in a database that people could like find, okay? And then, like, I don't know, download. And that was a huge fight. That's like my own little Trojan War. Okay, great. 10 years. So, what happens when you are able to keep these databases online? Well, we're in this AI moment. You can train on large databases. You can put them into vector databases, chroma databases. You can use retrieval, and you can learn things with a large database of information. And so, the gun community, or this open source gun advocacy, it can also benefit from AI. This is an organic extension of our work. And in the future, let's say, okay, I don't have time to read 100 years of gunsmithing texts. Oh, great. I have an intelligent agent that can, condense these for me.
I mean, this is really kind of exciting because one of the points I always made is that the enemy class is not composed of impressive people. And you have demonstrated really well that, yeah, they've got hammers, and hammers can really do a lot of damage to individuals and houses and banks and all this other stuff. But at a certain point, it's very limited in its utility and its functionality. And if, so much of the lawfare that you've been involved in is forcing them to define a gun. And it's to the point where it's just like, it's almost like Plato's, and Aristotle defining a concept. And now it's just like, okay, this part is the gun. It's like, okay, great, we'll make everything else the gun, and you can't print
Yes.
that. It's just like they don't know what to
Yes.
do. So
Now
it's
imagine like a Terminator Judgment Day scenario where it's like, okay, well, we define everything on the internet as a gun, and still we say, well, great, from seed, this model can simply synthesize
Yeah.
a gun without any original content. This is just another weird way to answer, or let's say overcome, these structures.
Mm.
And okay, if I hit a wall with export control, which is based on like a 90s idea of, well, there will be a file, it will be on a
Right.
server, and someone has to be in a particular geographic location to access this file. Okay, well, now the way things on the internet works are, okay, you have trained a generative model, and this generative model doesn't have any of the files. It's sua sponte, just like creates the goddamn thing based on a text prompt that you give it. Uh, this is a fundamentally different way of approaching the problem.
I
And,
think
and
they can't. Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I think they can't keep up with Cody because the creative nature of antagonism is far ahead of what they can do legally.
Well,
Um,
it's also that we have all the autistic people, and they have, like, literal corpses, so it's just, like, really not gonna be hard to figure out who's gonna win this one in the long term, and I'm not saying this in a pejorative sense at all. You have people who are highly logical thinkers, who tend to tunnel and fixate, and who lack empathy, which in this case is completely appropriate because you should not be empathizing with people who want your family slaughtered, and they regard the government not as something to persuade, but as a problem to work around and solve for. So when you have and who enjoy that sense of power and status by defying the most powerful people on earth. So when you mobilize that population as you have done, and which I try to do, it's one of the reasons I'm so hopeful because I sure wouldn't want to go up against those people. They don't have anything else to do. I do.
So, Michael, I've got to get you into this thing. GatGPT.com. I
Okay,
want you
sure.
to
I don't know what I would do
ask.
with it though.
It's not like I'm just asking people to use it. I'm saying, hey, you know what, Michael? If you have a dog in the AI fight, you can help us train the model, right? These models can be trained. They can speak with intelligent minds like you, Michael. You're like, what, easily a 140 IQ or something?
It's
Maybe I'm
160.
insulting you by saying that. Exactly. Like, you're easily a 150 plus. You're a 5th century Athenian, homeboy. Like, I want you in the model giving it better answers than what it is providing, right? Because, like you say, the powers that be are just going to train a bunch of dog shit models,
Right.
based on midwittery, because they're not the most impressive people. Like, Scale AI, what do they do? Oh yeah, they just train a bunch of question and answers with a bunch of Indian labor. No insult to the subcontinent of India, but I would rather have, let's say, hundreds of people on this side uh, of the Earth's equator, uh, making sure that like we're providing intelligent gun responses, political responses, ethical and historical context.
Jessica, what was your favorite part of the film? Like when I watched this, what's the one moment I'm really like, okay, this is really fun. I'm sure you have a lot of those, but
Oh, there's a few montages that are quite fun. The
okay.
music, the what's being said, the moments, they're still very powerful
Have
to
you
me.
have you 3D printed your own gun yet?
No, I have not.
What a
Been
phony.
around it a lot, but no, I haven't 3D printed anything.
I
Get
have
me a good splinter. I'll, do it at the school. No, joking.
you guys have AR-15s, correct? Right, Cody?
Do you mean printable AR-15s?
Yeah.
Like,
Sure. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can go to DeathCAD. You can print an AR-15 receiver. You can mill one. You can use a ghost gunner. You can do a kit AR-15 receiver out of polymer. There's
But
so many ways.
it's just so exciting because that is the one that they have the biggest hate boner for, and the problem's been the argument's over. Like, it's solved. So, like, you guys can rant all you want. One of the things I love to do is some of these I think his name is Fred Phelps. There's some of these parents who love dragging around their dead kids' corpses and being like, "My kid was killed in school, so you should be defenseless in your own home." And I will post that GIF of gun rights by state where it went from like no state had, and now it's like every state was must issue or shall issue except for like three. It's just the entire map changes, and it's just like we're not arguing with you anymore. Like it's a wrap. So and there's nothing they can do, and just reminding people who are nefarious of their impotence and irrelevance just from an evolutionary psychology point of view, is really useful technique, because no one likes to feel helpless and irrelevant and low status. So when you point that out to them, it really kind of strikes to the core of someone, especially both genders, but also especially males. So I always advise people, as insofar as much as possible, and maybe this is my Russian thinking, to twist the knife whenever you can, because unless they feel consequences and they suffer, they're of course going to continue into the same mechanism. And why wouldn't they?
I can't disagree, but I wonder what you think, Jessica.
Um, I think that this film will really ruffle their feathers.
Good.
There's nothing better than showing ethics and morals behind something that they're constantly trying to demonize. It's so interesting to me, which was one of the main attractions, that this technology is actually very democratic. And we can talk about all the other technologies like Bitcoin and all these
Oh
other
yeah.
things that are actually far more democratic than anyone has put on the table in the last 10 years, that are trying to control, surveillance, look after everything that we're doing. So the irony is very beautiful, and I think the film shows that very well.
I just had a phone call from my lawyer, actually. Jessica, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Talking about the film with you lads.
You are welcome.